And here we are, welcome to the first lesson in using the KLN89B. What we're using here is a simulator that you can download from the website, and it allows you to work with the KLN89 or 89B in a safe environment, whereas you get to know the GPS on the ground before you test it in the air. The interface to the KLN89B GPS is very straightforward. Although it has a lot of capabilities and a lot of functionalities, it looks simple, but let's go through this. You have multiple ways to communicate with the GPS. Now, of course, this is the screen, and there's no question about that, it's clear. And it has two sections to it. On the left, you'll always read the distance to where you're going. And in flight, this line will show the ground speed calculated by the GPS. And the third line will always show what mode the GPS is in. In this case, it's showing leg mode, meaning it's going to guide you from waypoint to waypoint during cruise time. And you always have the other option, which is OBS, meaning if you want to arrive at a waypoint on a specific bearing, you can adjust it. We'll talk about that in a lesson by itself. And this bottom fourth line always tells you where you're at. In this case, it's saying I'm on the airport page, airport chapter, page 5. And this is the displayed information for airport chapter, page 5. So what is a chapter? If you look at these entries here, each of these could be considered a chapter. And you can get to the next one by using the outer ring. If you look at this knob here, it's made up in two knobs. There's the inner knob right here, and there's the outer knob. And in the simulator, we can use these buttons to simulate using the outer knob and the inner knob. But in the plane, you will physically grab the outer knob and turn it, or the inner knob and turn it. You can also pull the inner knob for additional functionality, which we'll cover a little later. So in this case, we are starting off on the airport chapter. And if I use the inner knob, and I'm going to leverage the button here, and look at the left-hand side, and this is telling me airport chapter, page 4, and I click it again, it's still saying page 4, and that is a special case where you see the plus sign telling you that page 4 has more than what can fit on one display right here. So the page 4, you can click a couple of times and continue to see what's on that page. We'll come back to the content and explain what the content is, but for now, we're just showing the mechanics of how you interface with the pages within chapters. If I continue to the left, it's going to cycle through and go to the last page in that chapter, which is page 8. So I can use left and right to navigate, and this technique applies to all the chapters. So if I want to move to the next chapter, which is in this case VOR, I can click the right button, or in the plane, of course, I'm going to use the knob. And as you can see, I can use it with the mouse. I can up and down, and I can change the chapter. And this time I need to go back one, and here's VOR. And each chapter, like I said, has pages. So VOR page 1 tells you the active one is Lone Rock, code LNR, and the frequency 112.80, and the longitude and latitude where that VOR is located. I can switch to the second page of that chapter, and it'll tell you the magnetic variations, east, 0, and you can get to it on bearing 243 degrees 2, and you are 80.2 nautical miles away from it. And the rest of it is the same. So I can scroll to the right with the outer knob, and I can go into each one. And remember, we're just talking about the interface now, not the content. I will come back and explain the content. And within each chapter, I can choose different pages within that chapter. Notice this doesn't change, but the page number changes. And I can go all the way to the back side of it. And if I push again to the right, it cycles through to the first chapter. In addition to that, you have these buttons here that get you to specific functionality a whole lot faster. Now, most of these are functions, whereas these two at the right side, clear and enter, is basically a way to communicate with the GPS to let the GPS know either you accept an entry or you don't accept an entry, or this has a special function where you can delete something. In addition, you can cycle through some of the fields that I will explain in a minute. Now, how you get to talking to the GPS? By using this cursor. So anytime you want to choose something within this page, let's go to airport, page 1, and I want to get a different airport. I click on cursor. Notice I have a cursor highlighted here, and I have an underline under the first character, and the first character itself is changing, flashing. So what I do is use the inner knob, and I click to the right, and I start changing the characters. So K is OK, and I use the outer knob to move to the next letter, and I can select something else, and to next character, and choose select something else. And notice, as I select randomly, nothing is coming up in these lines here telling me there is no such KBA airport. So I'm going to go back to letter B and select appropriately, and here we are, KCLI, which is Clintonville. And if I'm satisfied with it, I say cursor off, and now I'm talking about Clintonville, and I use the inner knob to move from one page to another about that specific. Notice the code itself remains, which is Clintonville, and it's telling me all kinds of stuff about Clintonville, which I'll explain in a different lesson. And notice, as I said before, as I keep clicking to the right, the page number changes, and then after the page 8, it goes back to page 1. This is basically, in a nutshell, the interface to working with and reading from the GPS. Next, we'll talk about specific entries or chapters and what they actually mean to you and how you can utilize them.